In the 1970s, punk rock would be a force to be reckoned with, but it wouldn't take long for the genre to become stale. Many people felt that once was a nonconformist genre quickly became a parody of itself. The response to this was a genre called new music, better known as post-punk. When the genre comes into conversation, you always hear about Susie and the Banshees, The Cure, Joy Division, and Talking Heads. However, there is one that I thought really stood out amongst their peers and created some of my favorite work in the genre. Coming from Middleton in Greater Manchester, we have the Chameleons. They started off as a three-piece with the great Mark Burgess, Reg Smithies, and Dave Fielding. However, there was one small problem. They didn't have a drummer. So in came Brian Schofield, and then later we have John Lever. This formed the iconic lineup for their debut studio album called Script of the Bridge.
I'm gazing at faces staring blankly at me. Oh, I suppose it's just a sign of the time.
Chills immediately climb up my spine as the first song, Don't Fall, starts to play. Mark Burgess's vocals burst through an infectious guitar riff followed by Lever's pounding drums. Everything comes together and forms this dreamy and dreary atmosphere that you can't find anywhere else. The album cover was also done by Smithies, and it adds to the bizarre feeling that this album invokes. The album strikes a good balance between moody and slower tracks like Monkeyland and faster and more upbeat tracks like Up the Down Escalator. Almost every track here is a classic. Although many of these passages may be simple, they achieve so much with so little. For example, the ending track, View from a Hill, stands out with its slower tempo and introspective lyrics. It makes me feel like I'm leaving a childhood friend behind. This album is one of the most pleasant sounding albums that I've ever stumbled upon. Its dreamy quality fills me with a sense of nostalgia and melancholy. Every time I listen to it, I get put in a tranquil and meditative state. It's a killer debut album, and it absolutely blows many of their contemporaries out of the water. It wouldn't be long for this hungry group of guys to sink their teeth into their second studio album. Oh my god, where do I start with this one? So many classics on this album. Masterpiece doesn't even begin to cover it. If I had to pick a favorite on this album, it would be a toss-up between Intrigue in the Tangiers or Return of the Roughnecks. That latter track in particular features one of my favorite riffs in any Chameleon song. What you're getting here is everything from the first album, only improved tenfold. Infectious melodies and catchy choruses that make you want to replay them hundreds of times. Mark Burgess really stands out on this album as his delivery is just so passionate and emotional. Singing Rules Britannia is by far one of his most heartfelt performances he's ever given. He's really singing his ass off here. Of course, I would be remiss not to mention the underrated Home is Where the Heart Is, a far quieter track that focuses more on the bass and drums. It has more of a cinematic feel to it, but I feel it's one that goes overlooked. Followed by the heavenly P.S. Goodbye. This album is relentless in the best way possible. It's stuck with me for so many years and it's helped me through pretty dark times. It's an album that I feel a deep emotional connection to, and I'm glad I found it. The year 1985 would see the release of the album Strange Times. Going forward from this retrospective, I haven't listened to a whole lot of the rest of their discography. I'm familiar with some tracks on here, but this is largely a new experience for me. The two big ones that I was introduced to were Soul in Isolation and Swamp Thing. Two huge accomplishments for the band. Swamp Thing is an absolutely mesmerizing song in every aspect. The rest of the album is unfamiliar territory, and I had mixed feelings initially when I listened to it for the first time. This is a more lengthy album for the group, with each song lasting up to 5 to 7 minutes. I don't know if some of these songs really deserve that runtime. Another thing that's changed is that it's a more dark and complex album compared to the first two. It even reflects in Mark Burgess's vocals, as he sounds more unhinged here. I do sympathize with the band because they had so much on their plate after basically anything. On top of that, they got signed to Geffen Records. If anything, this album does attempt to change up the sound a bit, but I only really like a handful of tracks here. To me, the latter half of the album is a bit of a slog to get through. None of them are unlistenable by far, but it's just more of the same. Unfortunately, this would be the last album that the band would release for some time, because Mark and Fielding were having issues, and then the band went into the shadows for a long, long time until the cursed year of 2001. Why Call It Anything sees the band back together, and what you get is a pretty decent rock album. This album sees the Chameleons move a step away from their post-punk roots and move into a more rock-laden one. It opens with the best track on the album called Shades. It's really nice to see that Mark can also still sing. If anything, he even sounds better on some tracks. Dangerous Lands easily proves to be on par with previous albums.
I am a refuge in a dangerous land. I am a wall or a line in the sand.
They also throw in some of their acoustic offerings, which they were experimenting around that time period with. I'm not really big on those tracks, and I don't feel like they do much for me. This definitely isn't their strongest work, but I'm glad it's at least better than some of the reunion albums of other bands. Unfortunately, the band had a troubled history after this album, with like 9 billion split-ups, followed by the death of John Lever. On the bright side, they've announced a new album on the horizon of 2025, and stay tuned because I'll be looking at that one too. The Chameleons are one of the most underrated bands that I've ever stumbled upon, and it makes me mad that they aren't as well known. I've never seen a band with such unremarkable skill be left out of the conversation. When it comes to post-punk, these guys are always my go-to, and will forever remain kings of the genre.